Hi. So today I want to talk about how the industry is copying Apple, but they kind of don't copy Apple and make the things more worse for the consumer itself. Uh, Let me first start with like a very basic example, Android. As I have seen over the past decade, or maybe not even decade, like maybe past 5, 6 years, Android is becoming more and more like an iPhone. When I went to buy like my iPhone, or when I went to buy an iPhone when my previous phone was dead, I could see Samsung and I could see Pixel and I could see other OnePlus and other things like that, where the price was as comparable to iPhone. The logic here was that these phone manufacturers want to show their phone as like a premium brand by putting like a premium price, which makes sense for Apple, but it doesn't make sense for other phones. So the mentality of the consumer shifts in that way. If I'm spending like $800 for a phone, I would much rather go spend $50 more and get like an iPhone. It's classic aspirational paradox that wherever people are in their life, they want to move forward in their life or they want to move forward in whatever they're doing. And that carries on to consumer gadgets as well. So there is a ladder when people start earning money or when people are on their feet. Initially, in their initial ages, they would buy a phone just for its utility. Hey, I only want a phone which can make a call. I only want a phone which can read and send emails. I only want a phone which can take photos. I don't mind the quality of the photos. At that point of time, they neither do have the money or they do or like the time or resources to go and spend on an iPhone. Most of the time, especially in India, the first phone that we ever use is not a new phone. It's like handed down by maybe an elder sibling or a parent. So it's more like I just need it right now. As people grow in their career, they think of a phone as a utility. Like, hey, I can look at my emails here, or I want my photos to look good, or I want like the speed in my phone. I don't want apps to lag and things like that. What Apple does here is Apple has targeted itself as like the premium brand in phones. So whenever there's an aspiration to move forward, there's also an aspiration to keep upgrading your tech or keep upgrading your lifestyle in terms of tech. Now, brands understand this. For example, Samsung. They have different series: A series, M series, S series, whatever. S series is the flagship, right? They want the consumer to start with the A series and then move on to the S series. But they fail doing it because S series is priced more than the iPhone in certain configurations and in certain situations and in certain things. So the brand value of Apple is that, hey, we are the biggest phone manufacturer brand. We have a class to our phone, we have a brand value. So people start using Android, and just because of the brand value, when they have the money to upgrade to the flagship OnePlus or flagship whatever, they just switch to Apple. And there are a lot more people switching from Android to Apple than there are people switching from Apple to Android. Now, second part is, now let's talk about Android, the operating system itself. Android was always meant to be open source compared to the iOS nature of being closed source. But also, Android had certain features that iOS did not have. The most useful that I found at that point of time when I was rocking an Android phone was an external memory or an SD card slot or a micro SD card slot, depending on whatever you want to call it. Now, Apple never had that. Why? Because they want to sell you iCloud. If your phone memory gets full, they want to sell you an iCloud. All of these Android phones weren't greedy at that point of time. They wanted the most market share, so they started just giving micro SD expansion card slot. Then somebody in Samsung or maybe OnePlus or whatever the big company is, they decided, hey, we can probably make more money if we start selling Samsung Drive or Google Drive or whatever Drive software is. So they removed the SD card slot. And then they started looking at Apple, at what other things Apple is doing. So they thought, okay, Apple removed the headphone, not the jack, just the headphone from the packing. It saves money. I'll do that same. So they started removing headphone. Apple removed the headphone jack. Great. I'll also remove the headphone jack and I'll sell my own buds, like Samsung buds or Pixel buds, whatever. Apple removed the charger. I also removed the charger. So they started copying Apple, but they copied Apple in a more of a cost cutting way and not more like if I am taking a feature from something, I have to provide something in return. Take for example AirPods. I have a pair of AirPods Pro. I synced them to my iPhone once, and it syncs across all of my devices: my iPhone, my Mac, my iPad, um, and my office laptop, or whatever. I generally don't use my AirPods on my office laptop, but I'm pretty sure if I just open my laptop and start working on that, it will automatically sync. Even my watch, even my Apple Watch, if I'm playing something on my watch, it will automatically sync without needing to going to Bluetooth, pair device, search, and all of those things. This is what other manufacturers are not able to provide to the customers. I have been using Sony's WXM4 headphones and XM3 earbuds as well. Sorry if I'm getting confused in the naming, but I have a 3 series Sony earbuds and 4 series Sony headphones. And it's such a pain to, move them from one device to the other. Sometimes I want to listen to music on my phone, but it gets connected to my laptop. Now I have to disconnect from laptop and open from phone. It cannot identify where the music is playing. And it extends to other devices as well, like Pixel Buds or what do you say, the Samsung Buds. The other thing is the laptop. Everybody wants to copy Apple. We will make the laptop as thin and light as possible, as thin and light as possible. When Apple does it, they try to make sure that it does not compromise the performance. I have used an Apple M1 chip, and this one, my new laptop has an Apple M3 chip, the base model of Air of both generations, and it runs corners, it runs circles on any of the Intel laptops that I have had in the past. 2019, I was working in a company, and 2020, I was working in a company. Sorry, 2021, I was working in a company. I again messed up the dates. 21, I was working in a company, and they gave me a top of the line MacBook Pro. Not exactly top of the line in terms of processor, it was an i7. Technically, they had an i9 as well, but I would still say in the top bracket performance. Next year, Apple launches M1, and my girlfriend gets the Apple MacBook Air M1. And I was just trying to run something and run some benchmarks and trying to see the general use case. It just runs around the corner. It's a device without fans. Like, come on. A device without fans with 8 gigs of not even RAM, they have technically a concept of unified memory, is running circles around things like Dockers or in compile time of I had downloaded the Firefox source code and I was trying to compile the source code on both of the laptops. So when Apple makes the laptop light and thin, they also make sure that the laptop doesn't overheat and it doesn't create a bad user experience. The other industry saw this and they started making the laptop thin and light. My previous employer, not the one which had given me a MacBook, it's a different one, sent me a Dell laptop. Great, thin, light, want to compete with Apple? Good. But you forgot the part where you make the product good. I could not use the laptop on things like bed. I know it sounds crazy, but you should not use a laptop on bed. But what's the point of a thin and light laptop if I cannot use it at some other place? I take my laptop to a coffee shop and it easily lasts me 7-8 hours. Sometimes I don't even charge my laptop for days. I shut it down, I open it after 3 days, and there's like 60% charge left, and I still work on it. My office laptop, technically, it's thin and light, but they forgot to add the battery. So they are chasing Apple in a way that they are trying to make products more and more like Apple, but they are not making the products like Apple. They are just like wasting the potential of the product. And Apple knows this. Apple would push some like crazy feature around in the market and other people would start to compete with it, knowing that I will do this better than the other people. And then other people buy it, they get frustrated and then they switch to Apple. For example, my previous office laptop, it was so shitty, so shitty, so shitty that I decided I would never buy a Windows laptop again in my life. It was so terrible at heat management, at doing multitasks, and just like the overall battery life compared to the M1 chips and the M2 chips and the M3 chips that I installed Linux on it, thinking Windows is the problem here. It was partially true. The laptop did perform well, had a better battery life, and the fans were spinning up less on Linux and Fedora. But the experience was not the same. And yes, I did install Ubuntu and Fedora on my office laptop. The IT team said me not to do it. I did it irregardless. All you need is a VPN, right? So I had the VPN credentials, so they nobody figured out, nobody cared. So this is where the aspiration thing comes into picture. People who buy Samsung or people who buy Pixel like me, they take Pixel Buds and it gives them a bad experience. No, it's not connecting with my laptop, this and that. And then they see somebody else use Apple and they use it or they ask, hey, can I use it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes? And they're just surprised by how fast or how better things work here. So next time their aspiration becomes, okay, I will switch to Apple next time. And I feel that's the entire Apple marketing strategy. They don't want to be like the best in the industry. They are not selling you the speed, performance, battery life, and things like that in any of the products. If you go and see any of the Apple's keynote and things like that, they just self compare it to their products itself. M3 chip is better than M2 chip, M2 chip better than M1 chip. They don't give a fuck about Intel or AMD. They know their market. They are not selling products to the outside people or the outside community. They are just selling the products and they're just selling their services to the inside community, the Apple community, the Apple fanboys. And that's how the marketing works. It's like a vacuum which sucks in people from the outside, and people who are already in the vacuum stay in the vacuum. I'm like a vacuum cleaner, they never go outside. Now, I am not an Apple fanboy or anything like that. I have a personal machine which runs Fedora. I have another personal laptop which runs Windows, and I do have an Android phone with my India SIM card in it because I need it for OTP and things like that. Uh, I also have non-digital Apple watches, traditional watches. I also have a Fitbit, so I try to test various techs and various products in my life whenever budget permits it. And I feel that I just don't want to spend my time debugging. When I was a college kid, it would interest me. Oh, okay, this I connect my laptop to a monitor. The resolution is off by some whatever 5-10 pixels or the scaling is off. And I would start debugging that, oh, why is it not working? Did I do something wrong? This and that. Now I don't want to spend time on that. I connect my monitor to the laptop, it should work. Whatever I set it the last time, it should be the exact same thing. Don't change it. It should just work. So this change in shift of mentality comes when you value time over anything else. I feel so. Like right now, if I'm working, I know work is my main source of income. If I work, then I get salary. So I would do anything to make my work efficient. Dealing with all those Linux bug, Windows bug is not worth my time anymore. In college, I was just doing it for fun. But here, I don't want that headache. I just want put it and it should work. That's it. Because I am working and I need my full attention at work. When I had installed Fedora and Ubuntu on my office laptop, the Zoom screen sharing was shit, like really shit. The texts were blurry, the resolution was shit, and also like there was some weird memory leak in Fedora which would like crash the Zoom application after 20 minutes or something like that. So obviously Zoom has no motive or no incentive to make an application better for Linux. And Windows, as I told, OneDrive syncing in the background, their backup solutions, their security endpoint, this and that would always take more than 50% of my resources. The same set of tools are running on a Mac as well, because the company sent me a Mac when I complained about it. The exact same Mac versions of the tool, the OneDrive backup, the McAfee endpoint security, or whatever things used are running on Mac as well. But it's just nicely hid down in some place where I never see it, I never touch it. It doesn't impact my performance. Fans don't spin up because Mac OS is so great at memory management and things like that. So I genuinely feel that this is something that the tech industry needs to change. You are free to copy whatever you want. Like Apple probably doesn't gonna care if you try to make your laptop thin, light, whatever. But at least do it the freaking Apple way, man. Just do it the freaking Apple way. I have these headphones, the big Sony headphones XM4s. I connect them to my MacBook, the Air, and I can take this headphone and roam around in the entire house. This is the hall, and there's a bedroom that side, and there's a balcony here. I can even take around these headphones and go outside my house in the corridor, and still it would work. I take the same headphones, connect it to my Windows machine, and the Bluetooth is so shit that I go to the kitchen over there and this starts getting disconnected. And yeah, and Dell in their recent laptops they removed the headphone jack because Apple did it, so we will do it. And now there's no like good alternative for it. So yeah, Dell just made their XPS 13 shittier than the previous one. People like me would never buy it because if I'm in a meeting, I don't want my goddamn Bluetooth to disconnect, right? So yeah, and also Windows Bluetooth drivers, I don't know. I don't think they have updated it in like 10 years. They can't because they don't control the hardware. Like HP, Dell, these people control the hardware, and Microsoft engineers, even if they will try, they cannot optimize it. They cannot optimize it to the level that Apple does it because Apple has the hardware in control. They make the hardware, they make the drivers and everything. So yeah, that's the rant for today. I hope you learned something. Um, the lesson is that hardware isn't enough. Software is the key as well. And the companies are trying to make all the hardware changes that Apple does, but they are not making the software changes. It's outside their control. It's not going to work. Even if they try, it's not going to work. Hope you learned something. See you guys in the next video. Bye.